So I am excited to be with you here and to tell you some of the secrets that I've learned. And the first thing I want you to do is to imagine that I hand you an Aladdin's lamp and you get 3 wishes. And it has to be on the 3 areas that matter most to each of us: your family, your health, or your wealth. And I can tell you that this character in Chinese is Ganzi. And it is a term that means with the right connections, almost anything is possible. And it's true. For example, there's been a study done known as the Elite 1200 that looked at wealth managers who consistently pocket $1 million annually every year. And guess how many key business relationships these individuals had? 4. Also, there was a study that was reported in the Harvard Business Review that looked at people who had been the most successful in their careers and found out indeed those people only had 12 key relationships. Well, what I'm going to share with you today is how I learned not only to make my own wishes come true, but those of other people. And there's 4 foundational principles that matter the most. So the first one is grit, and grit is literally taking action in the face of fear. Probably the most dangerous risk you can take is inaction, not doing anything. So there's very few things in life that can kill you. So I started to learn to embrace fear. The second one is curiosity. You have to learn. And it is only by learning that you're going to be able to find who these key connections for you are. Finding the right connections is critical. The third piece is generosity. And what I found there is you have to be able to create value for others. And as soon as you create value for others, that comes back to you in abundance. And this allows you to literally leverage opportunities for yourself and for others. So let me tell you how I came up with these through my life. So as a young professional, I was horribly shy, very afraid to talk of it to anyone, had problems with my self-worth. And I knew if I was going to be successful, I had to change. So I got a copy of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I started saying hello to strangers and smiling at strangers and talking to strangers. And it worked. And even though I was afraid and fearful, it worked. And I started developing grit. And what I found out talking to other people was that everybody's got problems. And everybody needs help. It was kind of a revelation. And that if I just did something really simple to help them, that I often had a friend for life, someone who might help me. And this was a wonderful thing for me to learn. But the most profound thing that I learned is when I started seeing a pattern. And that pattern was, your problem could be my solution. And then it occurred to me that it was all about matching. That there's problems, solutions, there's inefficiencies in the market. So for instance, and people will ask me, well, why is this? And I will tell them 2 reasons. Number 1, there is not any lack of resources in the world. There's 7.5 billion people. Credit Suisse estimates by 2019, the global household wealth will be $369 trillion. There's no lack of money. There's no lack of opportunities. Information with the Internet of Things, they say, will double every 24 hours. Those are the building blocks. The second thing is, nothing happens without people. All of these resources, everything is attached to a human being. And you find out, indeed, it's not checkers, it's chess. It's figuring out how to be a bit strategic and how to make this match. So every week, entrepreneurs call me and they say, Judy, there's no money out there. I need to find 2 to 5 million to get my startup funded. The very same week, I will get phone calls from family offices, VCs, angel investors, saying, find me a good deal. I can't find a great deal. So it really becomes 2 + 2 = 5. We all want to be able to find that kind of magic formula or wish to get to where we need to go. So it isn't checkers, it's chess. And I'm going to tell you how I discovered that grit, curiosity, generosity, and abundance, how I figured out you could strategize and make this work with a really personal example. So several years ago, I was asked to speak to help the Utah Symphony develop their fundraising and to acquire more customers. And on this committee, I met a young man, Preston, who was just brilliant at social media marketing, which we needed to become successful, but I knew nothing about it. And he started teasing me, and he used to say, "Judy, you have got to start tweeting." And I said, "Tweet? What am I going to tweet? 140 characters? I'm sitting in the bathroom?" I mean, I didn't get it. But one day he came to the committee meeting and he said, "I've built a website for you and it's live." And I was dazzled. So later when he asked me if I would be willing to mentor him, of course I would be willing to mentor him. Reciprocity, generosity. Well, fast forward a year later, I was on a flight to DC. I had meetings at the White House, the SEC, and the Hill over crowdfunding legislation. And as I got on the plane, I looked at the woman that was to my left and I thought, she kind of looks like a creative bohemian. She had kind of a loose dress and long dangly earrings, but sure enough, 15 minutes into the flight, she's reading the Wall Street Journal. Then she starts reading the New York Times. And it is often the case, I was wrong on my initial judgment of this human being. So I asked her where she was going. I was curious. And she said she was going to Tel Aviv. I said, "What were you doing in Salt Lake City, Utah?" And she explained to me that she was working on a familial brain cancer research project. She was a top brain oncologist. We spent about an hour and a half talking about the latest trends, what was happening in cancer research. And I commented that I'd always wanted to visit Israel. Specifically, when I found out my last name shouldn't be Robinett, it's Klein. I could be part Jewish. And so I talked to her. Well, when I arrived home from that trip, my partner picked me up from the airport and said, "We have a meeting with a surgeon in an hour and a half. They found a tumor." My world went from everything is fine to terror in 30 seconds. At the meeting with the surgeon and then an oncologist, I was told that we might have 6 months at max, 6 months to live. I turned to him and I said, "That is the wrong answer." 3.5 years later, she is alive and well. And how did that happen? Well, let me tell you. It happened because I had grit and I told the doctor wrong answer and I found a new doctor. It happened because I mentored Preston, who it turned out when I asked for help out to my network, said, "Geez, I've talked to a nurse, Dr. Powell at Hope Cancer Institute, has a clinical trial, let's get her in it." Now, I'll tell you, most people don't ask, particularly women. Probably the 3 most powerful words in the English language, besides "I love you," is "please help me." So Preston found that person. I called Dr. Deborah Blumenthal. She told me treatment options. She told me how to get into the Mayo Clinic, other information that I needed. So what ended up happening is literally 2 pieces of information with 2 connections resulted in life. Now I want you to think about those 3 wishes that you had initially. And I can tell you, unless it's an act of God, and won't happen, that all the resources are there, all the people are there, and literally, it's your move. And it is a combination of this strategy. And you've always got to move. So get your right relationships and personally and professionally be a success.